Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
I'll get the guns, the drugs from my generation. I'll take the fall, the state, and across the nation. And it's a sin. The guns, the fake, the fraud, the messing with me. Come on, come on, let's get it out.
All right, let's do this one more time. Pull up a couch, pull up a sofa, pull up a love seat, pull up your grandpa's old rocker. We are here once again, the Hold 1005 podcast. You are listening to Robbie S. And for those who've been listening to the show for a while, you might be curious to know, hey, he's flying solo. What's going on? My co-host, Brandy, hostess with the mostest, she is currently unavailable due to technical difficulties. Hopefully next week she'll be back and ready to talk wrestling with you guys as always. But for tonight, I'm going to be flying solo, and even though I'm one person short, we still have quite a bit to discuss in the world of professional wrestling. And before we get into the previews, reviews, etc., I think it's time we cover a little bit of news that just broke recently. Mauro Ranallo has been reported to sign with WWE and will be their lead commentator for SmackDown when it comes to the USA Network on January 7th. Now, for those who aren't familiar with the name, Mauro Ranallo is a mixed martial arts commentator. He's commentated for Pride, Showtime Championship Boxing. Some wrestling fans might know him better as the guy who does the commentary for New Japan Pro Wrestling on AXS TV alongside Josh Barnett. And just as an aside, that's my commentary team of the year. In any event, he's been working in the mixed martial arts industry for over 3 decades, but has been a fan of professional wrestling, the WWE product as well, and he's described it as his dream job. And reading into the story a little bit further, I was surprised to learn that Michael Cole was the one who supposedly put in a good word for Ranallo. WWE asked Ranallo for some samples of his work, he sent them over, they were impressed, so they signed him. And he'll be starting with SmackDown as lead commentator. My guess is that he's going to be replacing Michael Cole, if I'm not mistaken. And I have to say, this is a pretty big signing for WWE. Ranallo is well known in MMA. He's got a very distinct voice. What I like about him is that he sounds like an actual sports broadcaster. He has a very booming voice, it's commanding, but it's also very informative. He lets you in on the small details of mixed martial arts, pro wrestling, whatever the case may be. And while it's been argued that his commentary might be brought down a little bit due to WWE's restrictions and how they micromanage everything, I want to be faithful, I want to be optimistic, I want to believe that he'll still be able to live out his dream and do well in the world of pro wrestling, because honestly, New Japan is great, WWE is a bigger platform altogether. Now with that out of the way, let's get into WWE TLC, which aired this past Sunday from the TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. I will say this for TLC. It was not nearly as bad as Survivor Series, which is still my worst show of the year. TLC actually had some very cool moments, which I'll get into. The show officially kicked off with the triple threat tag team ladder match for the tag team titles. The New Day, Big E and Kofi Kingston, defending against the Usos and the Lucha Dragons. This was actually my match of the night for a couple of reasons. The first was Xavier Woods. He wasn't competing, so he decided to take his skills to commentary. And while wrestlers on commentary often have mixed results, Woods himself did tremendous. I thought, he built up the match. One of the things I liked is that he was talking about how, I think it was Big E was resting outside of the ring, and Xavier was like, oh, he's resting, have you ever played 2K16? Use the stamina meter, you have to regain stamina to regain your health. And he's pitching this game better than the 50-60-year-old commentators have been doing, which was tremendous. But as far as the spot of the night goes, and this is my choice, it was Kalisto performing the Salida del Sol to Jey Uso off of the top of the ladder, both of them crashing down into a ladder underneath. It looked like it sucked, especially for Kalisto to take because his legs were kind of split in an awkward way. He was fine, but it looked brutal. Great visual, great stuff. The match ended when Xavier Woods decided to interfere, took his signature trombone, threw it against Kalisto's back, sending him off the ladder, letting Kofi get the titles, and your champs retain. After that, Rusev took on Ryback, and it was Rusev versus Ryback. It is what it is. We've seen it before. Rusev won with his accolade. Ryback passed out in the move, which is kind of weird. It doesn't seem like anybody really taps out to the accolade anymore. It just seems people pass out. I guess if you want to protect them, that works. Me personally, I think it's better off just tapping. You're not losing a whole lot. But yes, Rusev won the match, one win for the League of Nations. Speaking of the League of Nations, Alberto Del Rio defeated Jack Swagger in the next match, a chairs match at that, to retain his U.S. title. And if you thought for a second that Jack Swagger was actually going to win the U.S. title, then I have a bridge in Alaska that I'd like to sell you. It's over a nice waterfront property. It's lovely. Hook me up. Anyway, after that, we had the Elimination Tables match featuring the Wyatt family taking on the ECW Originals, the Dudley Boys, Tommy Dreamer, and Rhino. Pretty violent. I think that's par for the course when it comes to ECW. But it ended with, I think, the biggest tease of the night. Bubba Ray Dudley brought out a table, and he brought out a container of gasoline and a match. And I'm like, your mind thinks, oh, it's going to be a table on fire. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a big visual. Not quite. Braun Strowman stopped him and chokeslammed him through a normal table. And your survivors were Bray Wyatt, Luke Harper, and Braun Strowman. Eric Rowan was eliminated early on in that match by Tommy Dreamer, sadly. But yeah, very violent match. If you're into the ECW light style that WWE has sort of cultivated, this might be for you. The next match for the Intercontinental title, Kevin Owens defends against Dean Ambrose, a rematch of sorts from their Survivor Series bout last month. I thought this was a good match. Of course, it goes without saying, considering the quality of talent we had associated with this match. It ended with Ambrose reversing a pop-up powerbomb into a Hurricane Rana, into a pinfall, achieved a victory. Congratulations to Dean Ambrose. He's the new IC champion. But now I'm curious to know where Kevin Owens goes from here. I think one of the best ideas, one of the better ideas at least, is him going to the Royal Rumble, showcasing a bit of dominance, and then have Sami Zayn make his debut at that event, and the two of them have a standoff, and Zayn eliminates Owens from the match. And that could set up for a program between those two at WrestleMania, playing off of their rivalry in NXT, and before that, the Independents. I could see it happening. It could be a cool angle, I think. Next up, we had Charlotte defending the Divas title against Paige. It was a good match, it was fine for what it was. My big issue, though, was that it was really tough to get into because neither woman was really positioned as the quote-unquote fan favorite. You have Charlotte, who's sort of in the midst of a heel turn at the moment, and Paige has really been portrayed as the sort of petulant brat of a woman, and it's really tough to get into a match when there's really no clear hero. And there is something to be said about, good versus evil and, the simplicity of that story, but it's simple. It works, it works. After that, we had the main event, Sheamus defending the WWE World Heavyweight title against Roman Reigns in a classic TLC match. I can't fault either guy because they put their all into this. They really destroyed each other in this match. But it was just tough to care about it, and you could kind of tell from the Boston crowd they really weren't into it. At one point, they started chanting, "We want Cena." They started chanting, "We want Cena," during a time where people have become sick of seeing the quote unquote face of the company. But he's been away for a few weeks, and it does feel like that star power has been missing. You can feel it. Um, Sheamus managed to defeat Roman to retain his title after the match, and this is the good part. Sheamus was lifted onto the shoulders of Rusev and Del Rio, who celebrated. Reigns came back into the ring, speared all three of them, and just started taking them to town with a steel chair. Just went full ham on League of Nations. Triple H came out to try to stop the attack, but he got a Superman punch for his troubles, and then Reigns started to take a steel chair to him. And one chair sell that I liked in particular, Triple H stood up, Roman took the chair and cracked Triple H in the back. And usually when somebody gets hit with a steel chair, they just fall. Like just a sack of potatoes, they fall. Triple H decided to bounce upon getting hit with the chair and then hit the mat. Looked kind of silly in hindsight, looking back on it, but it did make Roman look strong, which is WWE's goal at this point. As Stephanie McMahon and the officials were tending to Triple H, Reigns started to leave ringside, but then ran back to ringside, weaved around the ring, struck Triple H with the biggest spear I've ever seen somebody hit, at least the biggest spear I've ever seen from Roman. That got a big pop in the crowd. They started chanting, "Thank you, Roman." And this was a textbook example of how you book Roman Reigns. Don't have him talk about tater tots, don't have him talk about beanstalks or anything like that. Leave the cheesy promos by the wayside. Just let the guy be a killer. Let the guy be a killer of a man. And to WWE's credit, last night on Raw, they made Roman Reigns their new WWE World Heavyweight Champion. They had him in a main event where if he lost, he would be fired, as per orders of Vince McMahon. And the guy got a great reaction that night at Philly, which was a crowd that booed him not too long ago. Believe me, I was there. I was at the Rumble in Philly when it happened. Yeah, as far as the show is concerned, it was fine for what it was. Not the best show of the year. I wouldn't even consider it top 5, but it had good moments, which is more than I could have said for Survivor Series. Good stuff. Before I get into the other wrestling event news, I'd like to cover this particular tweet that Michael P.S. Hayes made the night after TLC. And apparently, if you had your issues with TLC, you didn't like it, chances are then you don't like anything. This is what Michael P.S. Hayes had to say. "Well, anyone that didn't like last night's pay-per-view and the effort put forth by talent just doesn't want to like anything. That's your choice. Sad." Oh, and he spells your as you are. Lovely. Okay. First of all, Michael, why don't you take care of that freaking hairstyle that's been out of style for God knows how long? Secondly, no wrestling fan in their right mind is doubting the effort put forth by the talent. TLC, those guys put themselves out there. They put their bodies on the line. Those in the really hardcore matches in particular really killed themselves for our entertainment. I don't think anyone's going to deny the effort put forth by talent. The big issue, though, and this has been repeated several times, not just by me, not just by Brandy, but by a bunch of wrestling fans across the board, the booking just is not good. And when it's hard to follow a story, you tend to overlook the efforts put forth by actors. It's just like a movie or a TV show that just is not grabbing your attention. And I hate this idea that when somebody doesn't like what you have to produce, then they just don't like anything. Like they just want to complain for the sake of complaining. Not entirely true. The big issue that people have is that the stories are not that great. And when you spend the past 7-8 months producing nonsense, and that's what it is, let's be honest, WWE's been producing nonsense for almost a year now, you can't just blame the fans for what they feel. You have to look at the problem from a analytical standpoint and go, okay, what can we do to fix things? And while Roman Reigns, being the World Heavyweight Champion and on the path toward a potential character turn, is a good start, I am a little weary. I don't know if WWE will follow through. I wouldn't be surprised if on Monday Reigns came out and cut another cheesy promo that loses the fans. I'm sorry, but that's just the reality of the situation. It's really tough to be faithful to WWE and its road, especially when you have people like Hayes going on Twitter and just bashing the fans. I just feel like when you're in a position of power, you shouldn't be doing that. Simple as that. But I think it's important that we get away from the negative aspects of WWE and move on to the more positive aspects. Because if I have to talk about TLC any longer, I think we might have to cut this podcast short, and I don't want to do that. Now, tomorrow night, well, I should say tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, I should say, NXT TakeOver London from the Wembley Arena in London, England. It'll be starting at a special time compared to other live events, live specials. If you're in the East Coast, it'll be starting at 3 p.m. So my advice to those who work office jobs from 9 to 5, which I do, stay off social media between the hours of 3 and 5. When you get home, just sit down, watch the show. Most likely you're going to have a good time because these takeover shows have rarely failed. I don't think they've ever failed. I don't think I can name a bad takeover show that NXT's produced. But yeah, if you come across any spoilers on social media, then that's your fault. So let's go over the card for the TakeOver London show because there is quite a bit to go over. Asuka will be taking on Emma, and this match I'm curious to see because Asuka has been killing it as far as matches go. Not too long ago she had that great match with Dana Brooke, a surprisingly great match against Dana Brooke, which really opened a lot of eyes to Asuka as an in-ring talent. But to me, I don't think she's really had the match. Like, she hasn't had the match that defines her. It's possible that she could have it at London against Emma. And I think it's almost a given that Asuka's going to win. I could see her having a really competitive bout here, more so than with Dana Brooke. And I think that if you need any evidence in regards to Asuka's credibility, this is going to be a striking example. The next match is going to be Apollo Crews taking on Baron Corbin. These two have been at each other's throats for quite some time. They have been almost at a struggle to determine who the dominant force of NXT is. And you know me, I'm a fan of Apollo Crews. I've been digging his work as of late. Baron Corbin, he's shown tremendous improvement over the year. I think that he has grown into his role as the sort of self-entitled heel that just does not like the indie darlings like Sami Zayn, Finn Balor, and of course Apollo Crews. As much as I've been liking Corbin's work as of late, I think that this is the match for Crews to win, to showcase even more of his dominance en route to the NXT Championship, which I think is going to be the end goal. Next up, we have the NXT Women's Championship match. Bayley will defend against Nia Jax. Now, this one I'm very curious to see because up until now, Nia Jax has largely had squash matches. They've been matches designed solely for the purpose of showcasing Nia Jax as a monster, which she has been. You know, her power game is on a different level. It's very different compared to the other female talent on that NXT brand. But we've never seen her in a really competitive match, which is what I think that this bout will be designed for. I think that she's going to work with Bayley in one of the better matches that she's had. As far as who comes away with the title, I think it could go either way. I think the safe bet would say Bayley retains and then goes on to defend against, I think, Asuka, because I think that's the next step. With that said, though, it wouldn't surprise me if Nia Jax was the one who came away with the title. And I could just imagine the heat that would emerge as a result of that, because fans in London, they are rarely silent. They will make it a point to let you know that what you're doing is bad, or bad, low quality, whatever the case may be. But I think if you had to twist my arm, make me choose, I say Bayley retains. Next up, the NXT Tag Team Championship. Dash Wilder and Scott Dawson will defend against Enzo Amore and Colin Cassidy. Those tag team titles have definitely eluded Amore and Big Cass for quite some time. And I've said it during other shows, during other live specials, that this is going to be the moment where Enzo and Big Cass win. This is going to be their moment, but it never happens. It makes me a little hesitant to say that this is going to be their night, because I don't know for sure. NXT is very good at surprising you. I think if nothing else, it's very good at giving you the little twists and turns you didn't expect. On the other hand, as much as I've been liking Dash and Dawson's work as a tag team, I don't see them as the sort of long-term NXT champions, especially when I don't know if there's any plans to bring up Enzo and Cass to the main roster anytime soon. I think they'd be better suited to stick to NXT for now and sort of run things as the most dominant tag team. And considering that they've been a crowd favorite in New Sale, Full Sail for the longest time, I think it's important that they get a chance to run with the titles. I think it's long overdue. I think it's long overdue that they run with the titles. I say that Enzo and Big Cass do it. They will win. And we will go over the NXT TakeOver London main event when we come back from this break. We'll be back in a few minutes. Take this time to take a breather, get a drink, get a snack, whatever the case may be. Do not go anywhere.
the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
And we are back. We are back at the Hold 1005 podcast. Robbie S. once again, flying solo. And last we left off, we were talking about NXT TakeOver London. And we had covered everything apart from the main event, which will be Finn Balor defending the NXT Championship against Samoa Joe. I think that the heel turn for Samoa Joe was the best thing that could have happened to him, because as good of a fan favorite as he is, and he's a good fan favorite, he is many times better as a villain. He's very dominant when he needs to be, which is the most important thing, I think, for a heel to be, especially in this day and age when most heels tend to be very cowardly. They take shortcuts. They're not very physically dominant, which is what Samoa Joe has proven himself to be in the encounters he's had with Balor as of late. And I think that TakeOver London is the perfect time to put the NXT title on Joe. I think that NXT is in need of a heel champion, which we haven't really had since Bo Dallas, I think. And even then, Bo Dallas was kind of in that cowardly heel role I just mentioned earlier. And Finn Balor, I like the guy. I think he's great. But I don't know how much longer he's going to be on the main roster. I've heard things that he has no plans of moving up. He kind of wants to stay and make NXT its own brand, which is commendable. But you need challengers. You need capable challengers, and Samoa Joe as the NXT champion, I think that would be the greatest option. I think the opinion goes to Joe. I say that he comes away as the NXT champion. Now, before we discuss Wrestle Kingdom 10 in the Tokyo Dome, since the full card has just been announced, a bit of shocking, sad news was just announced. The Attitude Era head of security, Jim Dotson, passed away on the 10th. To say that this is a sad moment is an understatement. Whenever someone passes away in wrestling, it's sad. This is no exception, because you feel like you're losing a member of the family, in a sense, because you're so connected to wrestling, and you're connected to everyone from the flesh characters to the background guys. But Dotson was very interesting as a quote-unquote background guy, because when you look at old pictures of him, he's just a jacked up dude. Like, he looks intimidating. In fact, I would argue that he looks more intimidating than a lot of the guys in the ring did back then. It is very sad. Apparently, you can offer flower donations at a GoFundMe address. So if you guys want to help with the arrangements, feel free to do so. It'll be a great thing, because as bad of a rep as wrestling fans get, and I think anyone can agree, we do care. I think that it'd be a good thing for people to come together and offer a helping hand. And with that news out of the way, let's get into Wrestle Kingdom 10 in the Tokyo Dome, which will be taking place January 4th, the first big wrestling event of the year. And I think that if this is anything like Wrestle Kingdom 9, which was my first New Japan Pro Wrestling show, this is going to be no different. In fact, it's probably going to be even better, because looking through the card itself, it's going to be a stellar show. The matches themselves in the pre-show is going to be the New Japan Rumble, which will bring together the guys who aren't used on the remainder of the card. A great way to keep the guys on, pay them for their hard work. I believe last year it was Yuji Nagata. I believe he won last year's New Japan Rumble. The participants have not been announced, but I don't know if they'll air it. I don't know if they'll air the pre-show on New Japan World, so might have to look into that. They also announced Hiroki Goto will be taking on Tetsuya Naito. And Goto's been having his fair share of problems with Los Ingobernables, which is made up of Naito, Evil, and Bushi. I think that this could be a fun physical match. And unlike last year's Wrestle Kingdom, I do not see Naito coming away as the loser. I think that he's going to be the one taking home the win for his team. And I would argue that this is well deserved because to me, Naito has been the most improved wrestler of the year. And while he was a great quote unquote wrestler, great athlete, the character never gelled with me. To me, he always came off as very Hiroshi Tanahashi light, very flashy, very happy-go-lucky, high impact moves. He never grabbed me until he took this character in a different direction, became more apathetic, more of a bully, more of a villain. I like it. I think that Naito wins this, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him become the IWGP Heavyweight Champion before the end of the year. It would not surprise me in the least. From Bullet Club, Bad Luck Fale, Tamatonga, and Yujiro Takahashi will be taking on Toru Yano from Chaos, and two partners of his choosing, which have not been announced. If I had to take a guess, and a few people on the Squared Circle subreddit made this speculation as well, I'd have to say that the Kingdom, Michael Bennett and Matt Taven would be the safe choices because they've been doing work with New Japan as of late, and it would be a good way to bring them on, especially since they're treated as fan favorites over in Japan, which is a far cry from how they are in Ring of Honor in America. So that should be a fun match, a fun little undercard match. This is one I'm really looking forward to. Tomohiro Ishii defending the Never Openweight Championship against Katsuyori Shibata, who managed to defeat Ishii on a couple of occasions. I believe they had a great match in 2013. I think this could be a great revisiting of that particular bout. And regardless of who comes out of here the winner, someone's going to die. I don't know how many people who watch New Japan are familiar with their work, but they are very stiff. They are strike-based wrestlers. And it's going to be interesting to see just how much punishment they can absorb as far as comes away the winner. I think this is the time to put the belt on Shibata. I think that he's been overlooked as a top-tier singles competitor for years, which is criminal considering how good of a wrestler he is. In fact, I just recently put up an article on 87sportsfans.com detailing Shibata, his career, the current events regarding his career, and I think that him becoming the Never Openweight Champion would be justice. It'd be overdue, but it'd be justice. Next up, the IWGP Tag Team Champions, Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows of the Bullet Club, defending their titles against Great Bash heel Togi Makabe and Tomoaki Honma, who recently won the World Tag League Tournament. For those who don't know, Honma has been booked as this ultimate underdog of New Japan. The fans love him. They get behind every bit of offense that he mounts. They really want to see him succeed. They want him to rise to the occasion. Very rarely does that happen until this World Tag League Tournament occurred, and he and Makabe dominated. They did tremendous. And they were rewarded with this particular match at Wrestle Kingdom. I think that this is very much like Shibata's situation, the opportune moment for Makabe and Honma to rise up. And I think that if it does happen, and Honma wins his first ever title in New Japan, the Tokyo Dome is going to explode. If you thought Honma getting a smaller win last year was tremendous, that reaction will blow it out of the water. It'll be great. In a promotional match of sorts, ROH World Champion Jay Lethal will be defending against Michael Elgin. Now, Jay Lethal's talents, I think, need no introduction. He's proven himself as a talent, not only in ROH, but several other promotions to boot. Michael Elgin's a very interesting case, though. Starting off the year, I didn't think much of his work. I just thought, okay, he's another power wrestler. What was so interesting about that? Then the G1 climax happened, and he became, in my opinion, uh, the most underrated wrestler of the year. He's had great matches in that tournament, especially against Ishii and Goto. And I actually got to see Elgin and Goto take on each other at Field of Honor this past August, and it was another great match. Elgin, Big Mike, has been killing it, and I think that him winning the ROH World Title in Japan, man, forget just wrestling in Japan, which has been a dream of his for the longest time. Him winning a World Championship in Japan, I can't imagine a better moment for that guy. And regardless of who comes out the winner, though I do think Elgin will wind up. This is going to be another great match that people will not want to miss. The IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championship will also be defended. Red Dragon, which is the team of Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, will be defending against Matt Sydal and Ricochet, who won the Super Junior Tag Tournament not too long ago, versus Roppongi Vice, Trent Beretta, and Rocky Romero, taking on the Young Bucks in a fatal four-way. And Wrestle Kingdom has been known for its fatal four-ways with the junior tags. And unlike the heavyweight tag team titles, I'm always interested to see the junior heavyweights because the teams themselves are top tier. They perform at a high level every single time. And I just think that this is going to be one of those matches that whets people's appetite. I think it's going to make people want to stick around and be like, okay, this is all right. These four teams have killed it. Let's see what else is going on. As far as who wins is concerned, though, I would have to say that I don't know. Part of me thinks that Sydal and Ricochet could do it, considering how well they've been booked in New Japan. Uh, I could also see the Young Bucks becoming the winners because I'm a very unapologetic Young Bucks fan. Matty Mambo as well. And I think that uh, between them, I think I'll have to go with the safe bet and go with the Young Bucks. I think that those guys will take home the belts and let the Bullet Club benefit from a little bit of extra gold. Speaking of gold, and moving on to another title match, the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship will be defended. Kenny Omega will defend the strap against Kushida, and Kushida's had quite a bit of a year for himself as well. Not only did he win the Best of the Super Juniors tournament not too long ago, but he also was able to defeat Omega for the junior heavyweight title, only to lose it relatively quickly back to him, which to me was it was a weird example of booking. And while I do appreciate Gato's booking decisions more often than not, this was a weird choice, but it does seem like Kushida and Omega will get the stage once more. And if this was anything like their previous encounters, I think that fans are going to be in for another big treat. I've been a big fan of Kushida since I've been watching New Japan. Kenny Omega as well. Those two rarely put on a poor performance, and I think that this is going to be another title win where Kushida reclaims his championship, and Kenny Omega will hopefully move on to the heavyweight ranks because it seems as though he's been stuck in the junior heavyweight division for a while. I thought that when he first lost the title that he'd just move up. Maybe this will be an opportunity for him to make 2016 his year. I hope that's the case because that he is talented and you cannot deny talent. Next up, and this is probably my anticipated match of the night, the IWGP Intercontinental Champion Shinsuke Nakamura, my wrestler of the year, taking on AJ Styles. The first time these two have ever met in singles competition, and I think New Japan waited till the perfect moment for it to happen. I think these two are the best wrestlers on the face of the planet right now. Their talents cannot be denied. They know how to work in a number of styles, a number of wrestlers. And I think that this is going to be another example of the Intercontinental title being looked at as as like the heavyweight title in terms of credibility. Because I think WWE fans, they look at the mid-card titles, the US, the Intercontinental title, and they're looked at as almost like trophies. You know what I mean? They're not looked at as these tremendous accolades that you should strive for. It's almost like being handed a participation trophy and just being like, oh, okay, here you go, congratulations, be on with you. I think that the fact that the IC title is looked at in New Japan in such a big way speaks volumes about Nakamura's talent and the quality of talent that that promotion has. This will be a great match. Once again, my match of the night, my most anticipated match. And I believe that Nakamura will retain, and he will go on to continue to defend the strap proudly and do it in a way that only the King of Strong Style can. Moving on to the main event, the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, Kazuchika Okada, will be taking on Hiroshi Tanahashi. And granted, these two have faced off a number of times. Not only did they main event last year's Wrestle Kingdom, but they've competed with each other in singles matches over the past couple of years. It's almost like I looked on the Square Circle subreddit one day, and they compared it to Sheamus versus Randy Orton in terms of how many times they've wrestled. I would argue, though, that it's a very poor comparison to make because Okada and Tanahashi actually have really good matches. It's almost like putting peanut butter and chocolate together. Alone, they're great flavors. They work well by themselves. When you bring them together, though, it's a whole different experience, and it's one that is meant to be enjoyed. And once again, it's an example of the top-tier talent that New Japan has to offer. And while Okada has been unsuccessful in trumping Tanahashi in past encounters, I think that this is going to be the moment where Okada rises up and takes down the old guard, which is Tanahashi. And this isn't a knock against Tanahashi by any stretch of the imagination. He's been the ace of New Japan for years for a reason. It's because he is good at what he does. Every time he's in a singles match, or any match for that matter, the dude brings his A game. And it's sad to know that, the state of his back and just the injuries he's had over the years, his neck, that it seems as though he's going to retire sooner rather than later. He's definitely closer to the end of the career than he is at the beginning. Let's put it that way. Okada, on the other hand, he's got the world ahead of him. He's, I think, 27, 28 years old at this point. He's very young. And the fact that he's won the IWGP Heavyweight Championship a few times already shows that he's reached a level of success that few young guys can imagine. So I definitely see Okada winning the main event of Wrestle Kingdom 10 and being passed the torch in a traditional sense that I think pro wrestling fans have come to expect. For those who are interested in seeing this show, and hopefully you are, you can see it on New Japan World and jpwworld.com. Not only will there be a Japan feed with Japanese commentary, but there will also be a feed with the English commentary done by Kevin Kelly of Ring of Honor and Matt Striker of Lucha Underground fame. They previously did the King of Pro Wrestling show a few months back, and while the show itself was fine, I thought the commentary itself was kind of iffy. I think that Striker was fine in terms of how much he knew about New Japan, because it was clear he was passionate about the product. It's clear he knew a lot about it. Kevin Kelly just seemed lost most of the time. It just seemed like he fell silent more often than not. And it got to the point where I just said, why doesn't Striker just call the show by himself? It's almost like Kevin Kelly does not have to be there. And this isn't me slamming Kevin Kelly. I think he's a great commentator. Him and Nigel McGuinness in ROH do tremendous work. I just don't think that Kevin Kelly and New Japan are a good fit. That's all I'm saying. But if you require English commentary, if you want to know what's happening, in terms of storylines, in terms of moves, etc., then you have that option. But you can only get it by going on to njpwworld.com and signing up for an account. It's pretty easy to do. They have an English Google Translate option, so you can take advantage of that. The sign-up process will be made that much easier to you. And hopefully you guys watch the show and you become infatuated with New Japan like I have this past year. And you go down the rabbit hole with me because I like watching people spend money on wrestling-related things in the silly, silly ways that I do. And on that note, we will leave you to go and do your own thing. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Hold 1005 podcast. Next week, my lovely co-host Brandy will be back. We'll be talking about pro wrestling once again. And hope you guys enjoy.